Dear friends, we continue to monitor the news and events on the front lines of Ukraine and Russia. Today, Russia once again shelled Ukrainian cities, this time targeting Kryvyi Rih. This was reported by the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the Air Force in their Telegram channel. The explosions occurred around 9 a.m. It's likely that Russia conducted the attack with ballistic missiles as there was no air raid signal. One rocket destroyed a section of a residential building from the fourth to the eighth floor. Deputy Chief of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Oleksiy Kuleba, reported 4 fatalities and 43 injured. According to the head of the regional military administration, Serhiy Lysak, among the deceased was a 10-year-old child. Also, 4 people, including the child, were rescued from the rubble. The search and rescue operation is still ongoing. And another Russian missile struck a 4-story educational institution, causing destruction from the 2nd to 4th floors and injuring 3 people. In these recent days, the enemy relentlessly targets cities and city centers, shelling civilian objects and residential areas. But this terror will not scare us or break us. We continue to work and save our people, concluded Zelensky. And my condolences to the families of the wounded and deceased. So before we move on to the situation on the front, I kindly ask you to like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on all the latest news. And let's start right away with some good news. As per the information, the armed forces of Ukraine have driven out Russian occupiers from positions between the villages of Nadia and Novoyegorivka in Svatovo area, Lugansk region. Data from an interactive map confirms this, but there is no official confirmation yet. And according to analysts' clarification, the Russians failed to establish a stronghold not only near Nadia but also within the village itself. As a result of the battles in Novoyegorivka, the Russians are now only present in the eastern part of the village. Consequently, the only area under full control of the occupiers on this front is Serhiyevka. It is also noted that Russia has engaged considerably larger forces in the direction of Serebryanka, but they haven't achieved significant progress there. In the Zaporizhia direction, there are increasing reports of battles, specifically in the area near Robotyne. Additionally, a video has surfaced online confirming that the Ukrainian armed forces have advanced to positions near Orikhove, which were previously held by the occupiers. Therefore, we are awaiting further information. And in the Vuhledar direction, artillery exchanges continue. Attacks are taking place in the areas of Urozhaine and Staromayorske, but the front line remains unchanged in the past 24 hours. In the Kherson direction, there are suspicious lulls, although shelling continues, but there is currently no significant activity along the front line. Despite the fact that the Ukrainian forces have moved to the left bank, according to the latest information, they have managed to establish a secure positions. In the Avdiivka direction, the Ukrainian armed forces are not giving the occupiers any chance of advancement. All their formations are being successfully repelled, and currently only shelling is going without any offensive actions. Further south in Mariinka, the fighting continues, and according to official information, the Russians haven't achieved any success. In the Bakhmut direction, the Ukrainian armed forces report that the occupiers are holding their positions on the flanks around Klishchiivka. Andreevka also remains under Russian control for now, and in general, the situation in the Bakhmut direction is stable. In the Crimea and Siversk area, despite all the Russian attacks, they are unable to advance further, and the front line remains unchanged. Overall, heavy fighting continues in the directions of Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Mariinka. However, in the past week, the defense forces have managed to liberate an additional 14.6 square kilometers of territory, as announced by Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maller on her Telegram. And in total, the defenders of Ukraine have already recaptured 204.7 square kilometers in the southern region. Currently, demining operations are underway in these areas. And as reported by the Daily Express, the United Kingdom has begun preparing Ukrainian special forces for an invasion of Crimea before Christmas. According to the publication, Ukraine intends to restore Crimea to its territory and drive out Russian forces by Christmas. The operation is set to involve airstrikes, ground attacks, and naval actions. Over 2,000 soldiers have already arrived in the Dartmoor area in southwest England for training conducted in a military camp in Oakhampton, which is close to other military units and the public. The source from the publication indicates that the operation to reclaim Crimea will consist of multiple strikes against Russian forces. Furthermore, a representative of the Main Intelligence Directorate, Andriy Chernyak, revealed that the Russians have illegally mobilized up to 16,000 people in the occupied territories, treating them as expendable and not recognizing them as human beings. Chernyak stated that this mobilization has been carried out through forced measures, with the occupiers capturing people on the streets and even from small enterprises that were still operating, forcibly taking them and dressing them in military attire before sending to the front lines. He emphasized that the only realistic chance of survival for those forcibly mobilized is to surrender immediately and be taken as prisoners of war. The Russian occupying army has learned how to jam Starlink, significantly complicating the task for the defenders of Ukraine. This was stated by Colonel Yuri Madar of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. He pointed out that the occupiers have managed to completely disrupt the functionality of Starlink, and currently it is known that the aggressor is preparing a signal suppression system for Starlink for industrial production. I think everyone understands that a front line without Starlink is much more challenging than even a front line without F-16s, said Madar. And the last news for today is next week Ukraine will commence negotiations with the United States regarding an agreement on providing security guarantees with the framework of the Joint Declaration of Support. And this was announced by Andriy Yermak, the head of the President's office. He mentioned that Ukraine will start talks with the US for a bilateral agreement on security guarantees as early as next week. These guarantees will remain in effect until Ukraine becomes a member of NATO. Yermak emphasized that more than a dozen other countries have already joined this declaration, with new states joining almost every week. It was also stated that Ukraine will establish a system of bilateral agreements with the participants of the declaration, which will include specific security assurance.
The armed forces of Ukraine have advanced to the most crucial heights, forcing Russia to deploy reserves and striking ammunition depots in the rear. As reported by The Times, Ukraine disrupted the logistics of the Russian army, complicating rapid troop movement in the combat zone. There are three possible options for the Ukrainian armed forces: to advance east of Bakhmut and then turn south towards Donetsk, to move south of Volodar towards Mariupol, to progress towards Tokmak and then to Melitopol.
And that's all for now. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.